My name is Marie J. Wiley, and I am 33 years old. 33 years old. I guess I'm the kind of woman who just learned a $14,500 lesson, and all it cost me in the end was $18. At the time, though, it didn't feel clever or victorious. It felt like the floor quietly dropping out from under a life I thought was solid. I was engaged to my boyfriend, Daniel, 31. We'd been together for 4 years, engaged for 2 months. On paper, it made sense. I work in logistics, which basically means my entire job is making sure things move from point A to point B in the most logical, efficient way possible. Daniel works in event planning, which, looking back now, probably should have been a warning sign. His world revolves around aesthetics, presentation, and the right vibe. Problems don't get solved, they get styled. Then there were his friends, Talia, Becca, and Chloe. 3 women who moved as a unit, always together, always loud, always slightly tipsy, always judging. I was never bad in their eyes, just insufficient. Not in the way that makes you defensive, but in the way that quietly tells you you'll always be one upgrade short. My car was 3 years old. My shoes weren't the right brand. My drink orders were boring. I tolerated them because I loved Daniel, and I told myself they were just noise. The engagement ring wasn't noise. That was real. I bought it after months of research. A 2.2-carat oval-cut lab-grown diamond. Flawless. He picked it out. I paid for it myself, $14,500, charged to my card, and paid off over time. Daniel loved it, or at least he loved how it looked on his hand when people noticed. Last Friday night, Daniel said, "Babe, the girls are so excited. They want to take us out for a proper engagement celebration. Their treat, of course." The phrase, "their treat," should have set off alarms, but I ignored it. He said we were going to Aperture, one of those painfully trendy places where the menu reads like a science experiment and every cocktail arrives with smoke. We got there at 8. The place was dark, loud, pulsing with bass. The girls were already 3 martinis deep. Talia squealed when she saw Daniel, air kissing somewhere near my face. Daniel was immediately swept into their orbit, ordering the same pink drink they all had. I stuck with one old-fashioned and watched. The dinner wasn't really a dinner. It was a performance. Oysters, 2 dozen. Tuna crudo, we had to try. 2 bottles of wine I didn't recognize and didn't want. Espresso martinis with the oysters because apparently that was a thing. Every time I raised an eyebrow, Talia laughed and said, "Don't look at me like that, Marie. It's a vibe." I watched Daniel. He wasn't the man I lived with. He was louder, shinier, flashing the ring under the pin lights like he was signaling for rescue. A bad feeling settled in my stomach, slow and heavy. After 2 hours, the plates were cleared. Everyone was drunk, loud, and leaning into each other. The waiter, who looked exhausted, dropped the check in the middle of the table. No one reached for it. Then Talia slid it toward me. "So, Marie," she said, her voice suddenly serious, the other 2 going quiet, in perfect sync. "We've been talking. We just want to make sure Daniel's taken care of. He deserves a certain kind of life." I looked at Daniel. This was his moment. He didn't stop her. He giggled, a nervous, high laugh. "Babe, don't be so serious. They're just teasing," he said, patting my arm. "But, I mean, they're not wrong. It's kind of tradition for the woman to show her appreciation." My brain did the math instantly. This wasn't a joke. This was a test. I opened the leather folder. $800. For 5 people. On a dinner they invited us to as their treat. I closed it. "Okay," I said. Talia smiled. Daniel squeezed my arm. "Yay, I knew you'd—" I stood up. "I'll be right back," I said, and walked away from the table. Not to the restroom. To the bar. I paid for my single drink. $18. Left a $5 tip. Thanked the bartender. Walked straight out the door without looking back. 20 minutes later, my phone started screaming. My phone stayed silent for exactly 20 minutes. I remember noticing it because I was almost home, my hands steady on the steering wheel, my heart weirdly calm for someone who had just walked out on her own engagement dinner. The city lights blurred past, and for the first time that night, I could breathe. Then my phone lit up. "Daniel." I let it ring, and ring, and ring. It stopped. A second later, a voicemail notification popped up. I parked in my spot, turned off the engine, and listened. It wasn't angry. It wasn't confused. It was pure, high-octane panic. Marie, where did you go? Daniel's voice cracked. The waiter just came back and said, He said you only paid for your drink. Marie, the bill is still here. It's $800. This isn't funny. My card just got declined. Talia's did too. Becca says she doesn't get paid until next week. They're saying they'll call the police if we don't pay. Call me back. You can't just leave me here. You did this. I listened to it twice. Then I turned off my phone, went inside my apartment, and poured myself a very real drink. No smoke, no garnish. Just something strong enough to cut through the noise. I didn't sleep much that night, but when morning came, I wasn't panicked. I was focused. The logistics part of my brain had taken over, the part that solves problems instead of begging them to go away. I packed a duffel bag, work clothes, toiletries, my laptop. Then I went to my desk and pulled out the file with our important documents. I took the GIA certification for the engagement ring and the original receipt, $14,500, paid in full by me, my name, my card. Then I left and drove to my brother's place. He didn't ask questions. He handed me a beer, pointed to the couch, and let me exist in silence. That alone told me I'd done the right thing. Saturday morning, I turned my phone back on. It exploded. Over 30 missed calls from Daniel, Talia, Becca, and even Chloe. A wall of texts that bounced between rage and humiliation. Daniel, I'm coming home right now. You better be there. Daniel again. How could you abandon me like that? Talia, from a number I didn't recognize. I had to call my dad at midnight to pay the bill. I have never been so humiliated in my life. Then another from her. You're a pathetic, broke little girl. Daniel deserves better, and I'm going to make sure he gets it. Daniel again. I'm at the apartment. Your car is gone. Where are you? Then the accusation that made everything click. Did you change the locks? I didn't respond right away. I let the spiral continue, because spirals tell you the truth faster than calm conversations ever will. Around 9 a.m., I sent one text, just one. Daniel, I'm at my brother's. After your little test last night, it's clear we have fundamental differences in values. Your decision to side with your friends and attempt to humiliate me into paying an $800 bill was a deal breaker. We are done. The response was instant. A deal breaker over a dinner bill? He wrote. Marie, you are blowing this way out of proportion. I was drunk. They were joking. You're the one who embarrassed me. You made me look poor. I didn't reply. An hour later, the real motive showed itself. Fine, he texted. Be mad. But I need to get into the apartment. My work laptop is there, and I have a presentation on Monday. I also need money. My card still isn't working. You need to turn it back on. My car payment is due. That message stripped the whole thing bare. This wasn't about love or respect or embarrassment. This was about access. The card you're referring to, I replied, is an authorized user card on my personal account. It was for my partner. You made it clear on Friday that you are no longer my partner. The card will not be reactivated. The partnership is dissolved. He lost it. You can't do that. That's financial abuse. I'm calling the police. I have a right to my money. And he did. Around 2 p.m, I got a call from a private number. It was a police officer, sounding tired before the conversation even started. Ma'am, I'm here with a Mr. Daniel Summers. He's claiming you locked him out of his residence and cut off his access to funds. I stayed calm. Officer, the apartment is 100% mine. My name is the only one on the lease. Mr. Summers is my ex-fiancé. He is not a tenant. He's welcome to retrieve his personal belongings, but I'm not there, and I'm not comfortable with him entering without me present. As for the money, he's referring to a credit card on my personal account, which I have every legal right to deactivate. I heard the officer sigh. Sir, he said, voice muffled, she's correct. It's her lease. This is a civil matter. We can't force entry. You'll need to arrange a time with her to get your things. I heard Daniel start to wail in the background about his laptop and his clothes before the call ended. Then the text came that sealed everything. Keep your stupid apartment. Keep your stupid money, Daniel wrote. But I'm keeping the ring. You humiliated me. I deserve something for the 4 years I wasted on you. Consider it payment for emotional distress. I smiled. Not because I was happy, but because he had just put the final nail in his own coffin in writing. This wasn't a breakup anymore. This was theft. I didn't argue with him after that text. I didn't plead. I didn't threaten. I did something much more effective. I called my insurance company. Hi, I said, keeping my voice steady. I need to report a stolen item. An engagement ring valued at $14,500. I have the GA certification, the original receipt, and written confirmation from my ex-fiancé that he is intentionally keeping it and refusing to return it. The agent, who had sounded bored when she first answered, became very alert very quickly. He admitted it in writing? Yes, I said. I can forward the message immediately. Well then, she replied, almost cheerfully, we can absolutely open a claim. Our legal department will handle the recovery. This is considered a high-value theft. I hung up and stared at the wall for a moment, not shaking, not angry, just focused. Then I sent Daniel one final message. Daniel, the engagement ring is a conditional gift given in contemplation of marriage. The condition is now void. Your message stating you are keeping it as payment is an admission of theft. I have initiated an insurance claim and will be filing a police report. You have until 5:00 p.m. tomorrow, Sunday, to return the ring to me in person. If you do not, the police and my insurer will proceed with criminal and civil action. This is not a negotiation. The response came fast, frantic. You wouldn't, he wrote. You're lying. That will ruin my life. They'll arrest me. Marie, this is insane. You're blowing everything up over a stupid ring. I didn't reply. Instead, I screenshot the messages and forwarded them to my brother with one word. Documentation. A few hours later, a DM came in from Talia. So you're really threatening to put a woman in jail over a gift you gave her? She wrote. You're the definition of insecure and pathetic. We're telling everyone what kind of monster you are. I screenshot that too. The deadline came and went. Sunday, 5:00 p.m. Passed without a single call, text, or apology. I sat at my brother's kitchen table, phone face down, and waited. Some small, foolish part of me had hoped Daniel would do the right thing at the last second, that he'd show up with the ring and an embarrassed smile and we'd end this cleanly. He didn't. At 5:55 p.m., I called the non-emergency police line. I need to file a report for felony theft, I said. The item's value is $14,500. I have written admission, certification numbers, and the suspect's full name and address. The officer didn't hesitate. Ma'am, with that value and written intent to deprive, yes, that qualifies. We'll assign a detective. I hung up and immediately called my insurance agent back. The deadline passed, I said. I filed a police report. Here's the case number. Her response was almost unsettling in how satisfied it sounded. Thank you, Ms. Wiley. Our legal team will pursue the asset. You should be compensated for your loss. That phrase stuck with me. Pursue the asset. Cold, precise, unemotional. The fallout didn't hit Daniel right away. It hit his parents. Tuesday morning, I was at work when an unknown number rang. I let it go to voicemail. When I listened, my stomach tightened. Marie, this is Robert, the voice said. Daniel's father. I'd always liked him. A retired engineer, direct, no nonsense. I just had a detective call my house asking for Daniel, something about a $14,000 ring. You need to call me back. I did. He didn't yell. He didn't accuse. He just said, start from the beginning. Daniel told us some nonsense about a dinner and you overreacting. He didn't mention the police. So I told him everything. Their treat invitation. The bill. The test. Daniel laughing along. The demand. The ring text. There was silence on the line so long I thought the call had dropped. Then Robert sighed, a sound that seemed to come from the soles of his shoes. Talia, he said quietly. Not a question. Yes, I replied. That girl has poisoned my son since high school, he said. Marie, I am so sorry. This is humiliating. I don't want to ruin him, I said. I just want the ring back. If I get it, I'll drop the charges. You'll get it, he said, and his voice went flat in a way that told me he meant it. I'm handling this. 3 hours later, my apartment intercom buzzed. It was Robert. I went down to the lobby. He looked older than I remembered, like the last 48 hours had aged him a decade. He held out a small velvet box. I had to go to a pawn shop with the police report, he said, anger barely contained. It cost me $3,500 to get it back. Daniel pawned it on Saturday for $3,000. Said he needed to pay Talia's father back for the dinner. I physically recoiled. He pawned it? Robert nodded. He'll be paying me back until he's 40. Behind him, I saw Daniel sitting in the passenger seat of his car, staring at his lap, face streaked with tears. Robert pressed the box into my hands. You dodged a bullet, he said. I love my son, but this is on him. As Robert turned to leave, Daniel bolted from the car. Marie, please, he cried. I was scared. I had no money. You drove me to it. I looked at him, really looked at him, and felt nothing but exhaustion. You drove yourself there, I said. The moment you giggled and agreed with Talia, this was over. The pawn shop was just pathetic. So that's it? He shouted, a neighbor's door cracking open nearby. 4 years? Gone over money? No, I said calmly. Over character. You don't have any. I turned and walked away. I didn't look back when I stepped into the elevator. I didn't need to. The version of Daniel I'd loved was already gone, and the one standing in the lobby, begging, wasn't someone I recognized anymore. By the time the doors closed, I felt something I hadn't felt since that night at the restaurant. Relief. Heavy, bone-deep relief. The next few hours were procedural. I called the detective back and told him the ring had been recovered. I emailed my insurance agent and officially canceled the claim. The word she used was resolved, and for the first time since all of this started, it felt accurate. Clean. Finished. Daniel's parents handled the rest. I didn't have to threaten, negotiate, or explain myself again. Robert did all of it, quietly and thoroughly, the way people who are deeply embarrassed tend to. He texted me once later that night, just to say the charges had been dropped and he was sorry for everything his son had put me through. I replied with a simple thank you and meant it. Arranging for Daniel to get his things was mercifully uneventful. I gave him a 2-hour window and made sure I wasn't alone. My brother and one of his friends were there, sitting on the couch like silent witnesses. Daniel arrived with his mother, who avoided eye contact the entire time. He packed his clothes, his shoes, his endless lineup of skincare products, and the last remnants of a life I'd thought we were building. He didn't say much, neither did I. When they left, the apartment felt lighter, like it had finally exhaled. The ring sat in its box on my kitchen counter for 2 days before I could even bring myself to touch it again. When I did, I didn't feel sentimental. I felt practical. I took it back to the jeweler, sold it for 70% of its value, and put the money into my savings. It wasn't about recouping a loss. It was about closing a chapter without leaving loose ends behind. The aftermath reached me in fragments, mostly through other people. A friend of mine who knew Becca told me the rest of the story I hadn't bothered to follow. Talia's father, a well-known lawyer in the city, had been furious that his credit card ended up tied to a near-police incident over a restaurant bill. He cut her off financially almost immediately. Designer bags started appearing on resale sites. Becca and Chloe distanced themselves fast, not out of loyalty to me, but out of fear of being collateral damage. Drama is only fun until it has consequences. Daniel didn't fare much better. He lost his job, obviously. The pawn shop incident followed him around in whispers. He moved back in with his parents and picked up contract work that never seemed to stick. The last I heard, a woman he'd started seeing broke things off after Googling his name and finding a public thread about the engagement dinner fiasco. I didn't feel smug about that. I felt done. As for me, life snapped back into focus faster than I expected. I went back to work on Monday and finished a shipping audit I'd put off for weeks. I started sleeping through the night again. The quiet in my apartment stopped feeling ominous and started feeling earned. I didn't dread weekends. I didn't brace myself before checking my phone. I felt like myself in a way I hadn't realized I'd lost. People asked if I regretted leaving that dinner the way I did, if it wouldn't have been easier to just pay the bill and deal with it later. I always gave the same answer. Easier isn't the same as right. If I'd stayed, if I'd paid, I would have taught them exactly how to treat me for the rest of my life. They wanted to test my worth. The only person in that room who passed was the one who stood up and left.